So I feel like if I'm sitting up in the bed in my nightgown and I'm praying and talking to God, that's just as real as me sitting in church. There's no difference.
Okay.
There is no difference
Okay.
other than I feel the holiness in a visceral way when I'm in church.
Yeah.
But there is no difference. God doesn't feel any differently towards me, whether I'm in my bedroom or whether I'm in a church pew.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that to say that it's never been about how God sees me. It's been about how I see myself and accepting in my bones that God sees me just like he sees everybody else. Like I know that in my head, but to accept that in my bones. And so anyway, I've got off track, but when I decided I was going to go to the Course in Miracles group, I knew I had to show up authentically. I wanted to for myself. If I'm going to get anything out of this,
Right.
I'm going to be honest.
Right.
So I want to talk about, whatever. I don't think I've ever told them, though, that I was involved with a married man. I don't think I said that. I'll talk about relationships, but I just knew I wanted to show up and put myself out there so that I can work through everything that I want to work through and that I can be as close to God as possible, because that's my ultimate goal.
Right.
To really just to know God through and through.
That's awesome.
Hey, everybody. Let's start healing. I'm Adrianne Murchison, and welcome to episode 70 of the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. This episode is a little different today. I am on the hot seat, and my friend Lanada Chanel Duncan, who is the host of her own podcast, She Talks in the She-Cave, she is interviewing me for this episode, and I'm going to share a little with you about a chapter I wrote in the book, Women Who Rise, which is a compilation of chapters from 30 different women who are sharing different journeys in their life. And I've mentioned this book to you before. This book is published by Kate Butler, who publishes a book series called the Inspired Impact book series. And there are a number of books, Women Who Empower, Women Who Rise, Women Who Inspire. And so I'm talking today a little about the chapter in the book that I was a part of, and also about my own journey, why this podcast is so important to me, what I really want to get out of people in my conversations with them, because I'm seeking to get something so authentic about their spirituality in our conversations. And in talking about my own journey, of course, as I've shared before, either on social media or on an episode, I have a lot of highs and lows in my life in navigating this pandemic. And I really share aspects of that in general in the past, so that whoever is also experiencing something similar can know that they're not alone and can really get some insight by just relating to it or feeling some levity through the conversation that me and Lanada have. I was just talking to a friend, and I would love for her to be on this podcast sometime. She's a very private person, but she has been through so much and is incredibly amazing. And just in talking to her, I'm just reminded how each of us, we all have our own journey, and none of us know in a large part what the other person is going through. And, we show up and we're laughing and we're talking, or, we're diligently getting through whatever we have to get through that day in our workplace. And we never know just the trials or the weight of what somebody else is carrying. And I just want to bring even a deeper awareness to that than we already have. I mean, we have talked about that a lot. When I say we, I mean collectively. that's been brought up a lot lately, being able to say it's okay to say that you're not okay. It's more than that, though. It's more than that, obviously. So, anyway, let's get to this podcast. I hope you get something out of it. Please let me know what you think, whether you send me an email at let's start healing podcast at gmail.com or you share something on social media. Please subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. We are on podcast 70. Podcast 70. Let's start healing.
Well, so welcome, Adrianne. I feel like I'm hacking you again.
Well, thank you.
So I'm not hacking you, but I am super excited to be able to interview you and ask you some questions again on your life. You know what I mean?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I have to say that a few of my recent guests have gone back, people who I just met for the first time who have become guests, and they have gone to listen to previous podcasts, and they mentioned the one where you interviewed me.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Really?
They sure
like,
do.
who was that awesome woman that interviewed you on that podcast? Like, or what a horrible job she did.
Not at all. They just say that they really like that podcast.
Good.
Yeah.
I think it's good when you just have friends, just kind of having a conversation. And really, I get to know you through a lot of this too, some more. You know, I feel like I know you, but you actually get to know some deeper things sometimes. And then, you know, more conversation comes out about that. That's kind of real. And maybe hopefully that reflects on people.
Right.
You know, so.
Right.
Well, good. Well, let's get started into some more good conversation. And so we're here to talk about women who rise.
Yes.
Amongst some other things.
My chapter in Women Who
Your
Rise.
chapter in Women Who Rise. And can you tell me a little bit about the book just as a whole? Because I have to be honest, I have not yet. And I thought about this when I was reviewing your chapter again, that I really at some point want to dive into all the chapters and read some more about all the ladies and just kind of get a good feel for these other women. You know, love to just hear about other women's lives and that kind of thing and how they just were overcomers in situations. So tell us a little bit about what the book really was meant to do, highlighting these women.
Kate Butler, who is a guest on a previous episode, she publishes different book series. Mm-hmm. This is the Inspired Impact series.
Okay.
And so she has several books in that series. Each book features 30 chapters, 30 different authors.
Okay.
And so I'm in Women Who Rise. There's Women Who Illuminate, which our good friend Jazz Jones is in that book. Jazz is also featured in Kate Butler's latest publication, which is Women Who Empower.
I see.
Again, I've interviewed several authors from that book who've been featured on this podcast. Mm-hmm. There's definitely a new book coming up, Women Who Inspire. So it's all about women empowerment. Okay. And each chapter is by a different author, a woman who is writing about a journey something she came through. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So like Jazz's chapter, her latest one, actually, she wrote with her daughter, Jania. Mm-hmm. So they wrote about their relationship and coming through some difficult times together. Mine is about, my just trusting God, my journey and trusting God. Yeah. People just write about different things. One author wrote about losing her son. Okay. So it's pretty beautiful. It's pretty awesome.
Okay.
You realize we all go through something. And so it's inspiring to read how these women went through their own trials and came through it.
Yeah. That's awesome. So they're all kind of women who do something, but whatever it reflects, just how they are able to be empowering and to other women or in some kind of way in their lives even.
It's about their personal journey.
Okay.
And so if their
whether
personal
leaders
journey
or empowering or rising or whatever, so they have a different theme, so to speak, with each book.
Well, each book has a different title,
Okay.
but each chapter is about a woman's journey.
Journey, right.
So you, for example, you were a single mom after your first marriage, and you went through some struggles, which we talk about in a previous podcast. So that might be something that you would write about in this chapter, how you came through that, what that was like.
Right.
You know, it was really hard, and, you know, just the weaving, you know, winding road that you came through.
Yeah.
So that's what this is. It's
Okay.
all different women's journeys in life. We all have them.
Absolutely.
Somebody will probably write about their life during the pandemic and what that experience was like.
Got it.
But each book has a different title, just to sort of speak to you, you know, just to speak to empowerment. So I'm looking at women who empower, women who illuminate, women who rise. One is coming out, women who inspire, as I mentioned. So,
All right.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I definitely found your chapter to be enlightening, I would say, more enlightening into the depths of Adrianne and where life has just taken her. I mean, a lot of this we've shared as friends, you know, as we've talked and gotten to know each other. But I definitely felt that you were opening up your heart to really share and get a good glimpse of who Adrianne is and why she is who, or how she's become that person. I found that to be really good. And so I had read it before when the book came out. I told my mother about it, and she was excited to get it and read it. And she has talked very positively about it as well. I think she's read some of the other women's story also. So I felt more connected, just knowing, again, more about your journey. It's called Women Who Rise. I know the reason why you want it to be specifically in this particular book with that title, but could you speak a little bit to why you really decided, I'm going to do this? I want to open up and share a little bit more myself, and what your intent, what was that?
Well, first, let me turn the tables a second. What did you glean from the chapter when you read it?
From you?
Uh-huh.
Well,
I mean, what did you get? What did you glean from it?
Initially, a couple of different things. I mean, you're starting off with telling about why you feel, or how you discovered that God is love. And so you're really talking about the death that you've had to experience. You know, I like the story that you told about Christmas and how the snow and your response to your brother was because God answers prayers. I thought that was just the perfect thing to say and not to have to go into a lot. And so how you even connected snow on a Christmas day to something like that. So that was kind of like, that's Adrianne. You know, everything is like there's going to be a connection of how she feels God is and how he brings us these gifts in life. And so that was just heartwarming. And then you go and transition from that into how I guess you've had the awakening of God being love, but in some ways through death and having to heal through this experience of death of such close loved ones, you know, which is kind of like, wow. And to even get love out of that and how God was always there and having to see that through such trying, challenging times. I didn't know that, I think. I don't think we ever talked about the close boyfriend that had died with cancer. But when I read it before, I was like, wow. And then this time when I read it again, I thought just having that experience, not being able to let those things out until you get that feeling that you got from God while you're driving in the car, and now you feel like it's okay and he's right here on this less, that being a gift from God even, you know, as well, the opportunity to do that. So you're able to highlight and see all these times throughout all these challenges in your life and see God gifting you with things, the gift of your mother still being there, the turmoil of dealing with your father and your brother's loss, but then realizing that they were always there all along, or at least you can have this experience of being with them again. So that was just amazing as well. And I've got some great questions about how the Course in Miracles, after the situation of being in a relationship with someone, which you can talk about later and share that. But after having now endured this kind of situation where I love someone but can't completely have them in the way that I want, and then really get into kind of like a breaking point, it seemed like. And then the answer coming to you through A Course of Miracles. And so all of these things you've identified yourself with, but all of that makes up who you are as well as Adrianne. But all of this has sealed your confirmation of God being love. Yeah, I think ultimately that. And then after having all of this reality check and I guess all of this confirmation of who you are as a person, now 2020 hits. Well, then really going through the job loss and the financial situation. And I have this assurance now of who I am, and now 2020 hits. Yeah. And then it's like, well, damn. So I think, definitely bringing a little bit of that into the play of really, so now that you have this confirmation, how stable were you? And you've shared a lot about how challenging 2020 was and how sometimes alone you felt, so then it's like you had this feeling at the end of 2019 and then the pandemic hits and it's like, does it take you back again into some of this whirlwind of life?
Yeah, it did. It's been, even when you mentioned 2020, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go down that road, but
it's such, we all want to forget it, but can we?
Yeah. But yeah, 2020 was very challenging. Life is really easy when we don't have any struggles.
Of course.
Obviously, and when everything's fine, it's easy to be who we are. It's easy to be a nice person. It's easy to be rooted in your faith, whatever the faith is. I find that to be true for me. But it's when it's hard that it's when, the trials come.
Rubber hits the road,
that,
as I call it.
It's like, well, who am I? As you know, I was hired on staff with a newspaper in 2020, and I was determined that I was not going to lose myself, that I wasn't going to let the job change who I am, wasn't going to let it change the lightness of my spirit, because journalists are very cynical. And
no.
And I've told you I want to start a new podcast called I'm Not Cynical, So I was determined to not let my spirit be crushed, I should say. And my spirit got crushed. My spirit got crushed by aspects of the job. Although I've been affiliated with the paper for what feels like a gazillion years, but several years, this was a new lane. This particular role is a new lane. Okay. And so was a learning curve. 2, we have a pandemic. And 3, I'm all alone in terms of my lifestyle, where I live and, all of that. So, yeah, my spirit got crushed. And I had, and this is totally nothing to do with the book, but it's answering the question that Friday would come and I wouldn't even feel like back to relaxation until
like
Sunday.
Grateful for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still revved on Friday. I'm still pissed. I'm still feeling, whatever on Friday. Saturday, my mind is still going. Fuck, shit. Just feeling, excuse my language, but feeling all these things. Finally, by Sunday morning, I'm like easy. It was like that for several months. And I would say definitely I started feeling differently after George Floyd because everything shifted into a different gear at the paper. I was praying all the time. Part of my spiritual growth is to look at myself and, what am I doing? What can I do better? What does this person need? I'm trying to look at the other person through loving eyes, and other people, I should say, through loving eyes. So everything I was trying was not working.
You're saying, and you were in this mode last year?
Yeah.
Because even through the pandemic.
Right.
Weren't, thinking about what other people
Right.
needed.
And this is just getting to just the challenge, how I can be challenged when challenging times come up. There I'm challenged. I'm not finding the answers from God. I just want peace.
Right.
I don't so I'm not having peace. I don't have balance in my day. That's how I felt. But things did shift. Things improved when the early summer came. And so it wasn't every day. Might be most days, but not every day that I wouldn't be
clarity
happy.
in a way, or did you get some clarity through it all, or just off and on?
No, I didn't get clarity. I just what ended up coming to me just through time is, one, I want to try to be the best person I can be, try to serve, try to show up for the other person in the way that I can, but also to be okay with me being me. So I might do what I need to do. Like if you react to me in a certain way, right? And I have a reaction back. Like if you push me and I push you back, I'm like, what are you doing? And I push you back, right? Well, that's fine. But even with pushing you back, I want to be okay with who I am, you know, and recognize that I'm good enough. That's what the whole thing is.
Well,
Is that's what the whole thing has been, not believing that I'm good enough. Not believing that I'm good enough in my work, in life, you know, just not thinking I'm good enough. And to finally accept that I'm good enough and how I believe God made everybody, he made me too. So, you know, I believe that everybody is holy, WHOLLY, HOLY. I believe everyone is a holy, completely loved child of God. And when we act otherwise, we forget who we are. And I believe we're all perfect, that God created us all perfect. And when we act otherwise, we forgot who we are. We're totally removed from who we truly are.
Or some people just don't even know who they are, and that's why they act a certain way.
And so I mean the same thing. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Because as you're on the journey, so may somebody else be on the journey of discovering who they are.
Right. But somebody may not ever know in this form. I believe that just because they might not know and I might know doesn't mean that I'm better than them.
And did you feel in going through life that that's the way you might have been treated?
No, it's all about believing in myself.
Right.
And so accepting that, I think that a lot of times I have walked through life. I know I have. It's no think. Everything that I just described applies to everybody but me. Oh, I'm some kind of mistake.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm so flawed. I'm starting to let it sink in. I've understood in my mind, but not necessarily in my spirit, that, you know what, I'm good enough too.
Got it.
My own gifts are my own gifts. And if somebody doesn't appreciate my gifts, whoever it is, it could be a boyfriend, it could be a girlfriend, it could be anybody. If that person doesn't appreciate my gifts, well, that's just where they are. To borrow from Wayne Dyer, that's just where they are. They don't have nothing to do with me.
That's right.
You know, so that's been a long-winded answer to your question.
That's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
We don't, unless you want to, need to go into where that began to talk about how we rise. Sometimes we have to talk about rising from what. And so do you want to share a little bit of the rising from what? I mean, you opened up a little bit about that because, of course, it's the self-doubt. It's the not knowing who you are. It's all of that. But even the underlying base of that, where that came from.
Yeah, I don't think I want to go into that right now because I
worries.
don't know how much I want to share. But definitely my self-esteem has been a lifelong journey.
Yeah. And maybe then let's just talk about it as it connects to what you shared in the book, in case others do read about it in the book. Because one of the things I wanted to ask you was, like, after your mother's death and a few broken relationships that you shared and talk about, one in particular, and maybe a couple in particular you shared and talked about, you began believing that healing meant living authentically. And so is that authentically kind of what you just talked about with knowing who I am, knowing the value that lies within me? Is that what you mean by authentically for the most part?
Yeah. Well, so also in this chapter, I talk about how I was in a relationship with a married man. And so a little that I can talk about your previous question was that I had always been in relationships with men who were not emotionally available.
Okay.
You know, they weren't married, but they didn't want a commitment in the way that I wanted a commitment. And I've watched too many movies where that's how men are and you get them in the end. And and I loved the men that I was involved with. So, but I was in a lot of relationships where I allowed myself to be in relationships where I wasn't treated well. And,
So
people
this is
treat
before
you.
your mom's death and
Yeah,
after.
I
Yeah,
mean,
sure. Just from
my
young adult.
20s
Okay,
forward.
I got it.
And, people treat you the way you let them treat
Absolutely.
you. And I
Absolutely.
let them treat
I
me,
understand.
a certain way.
Mhm.
And in this particular relationship, this person was married. I didn't know he was married at first. We were together for several years. First 2 years, I thought he was single. Actually, what the truth was, he and his wife lived in separate cities.
Yeah.
So I would go visit him. He would come visit me. He knew my family. In fact, when my mother passed, I still do, but when my mother passed, my prayers to her were always to look out for him, just like she would look out for my brothers. He was never going to leave his wife. I think he's divorced now, but he was never going to leave and give me the life that I wanted. The first couple of years, we were like super tight, but after that, I just didn't see that love. I've been in other relationships where I see the love.
Okay.
He cared about me a hell of a lot, but he was not in love. And I did not like that. This was a black man. He's married to a black woman. I did not like that I was, involved with a black woman's husband.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to do that to
married,
anyone.
right.
I wouldn't want to do that to any
Anyone,
woman.
but
There's a sisterhood.
got it. Got it.
And I didn't like that. So that automatically, I didn't feel authentic. And I'm with somebody that it doesn't belong to me. He's not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not going to give me what I want anyway. I knew I couldn't get to happy with him.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way I could survive my mom not being alive was to try to live authentically, try to get to where I am now, where I feel comfortable in my own skin, and have the promise of meeting, a man that I could love and who could love me.
Yeah.
And I had a girlfriend. I told her this recently. We reconnected. We were friends since we were teenagers, and she moved out of state.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would reconnect every so many years. And so we reconnected around a year or so after my mom passed, and she was like, so how are you doing? Yada, yada, yada. And she was going through a divorce. And her husband had, I think, unexpectedly, wanted a divorce. And she just reinvented herself.
Mm-hmm.
And she was living so authentically. She's an academic, but she always played the piano. I think she started teaching piano lessons. She started running. I think she started wearing her hair braided. I almost want to say she started wearing dreads, but I think I'd be lying if I said that.
Yeah.
But, she just totally reinvented herself. And just was empowered after going through something that was devastating, probably. Yeah. And when she was telling me about it, and she was like, so tell me about you. And I'm not living my life authentically at that time. Right. And so that was okay, get off your behind. Yeah, you want to do this, get off your behind.
Sure.
Because you can't even speak your truth right now.
Yeah.
So only a couple of people knew about him. My girlfriend Tanya and a very close guy friend that I've been friends with since I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were the only two. And my mom.
Yeah.
My mom and my grandmother.
Okay.
Because my mom told my grandmother.
Ah.
So.
Yikes. First of all, it's almost like when you have, if you're an alcoholic, sometimes, and I have not taken the whole 12-step program and all that, but I'm pretty sure at some point, I would think in my mind, it starts with you acknowledging that that's what you are.
Exactly.
And we need to change.
Right.
In you saying that and you starting to profess that, meaning whatever changes you're now starting to make, acknowledging it yourself that, okay, I've been living this lie of whatever sorts. I haven't been tapping into myself. I've always connected with God from a love perspective. I know he lives within me. I've had this experience of seeing God's love through my mother, who was the ultimate example of what love is. It's like that was the beginning of your healing to me. You acknowledging that I need to live authentically. Do you feel that that's where it started and where the change was, is the acknowledgement for you, that awakening that you had of the situation that happened? You did mention seeing this woman, seeing that. How does it begin? That process start of now I make the change? Like, really?
Well, it started by my mom passing away
Okay.
because, and I've said this before, I just didn't know how I'm going to live without my mom. I'm amazed. Before she passed, my grandmother passed. And so, I mean, I just remember it being 2008. My mom died in 2006. And I remember laying in the bed one Saturday morning in 2008, just saying, God, I can't believe you have me out here like this, because it had been 2 years and I just felt like so alone. Like my mom's gone, my grandmother's gone.
Yeah.
It started with that.
Okay.
And I had bought A Course in Miracles in 2005, but I didn't read it right away, or I read parts of it. And because it's not easy to read at first. Now it seems so simple to read, but at first it's kind of like, what is this?
So you bought the book?
Yeah, I had bought the book in 2005. In 2008, I wanted to get with a group. I wanted to talk to people about it. So when I decided that I was going to go to this group, I decided, it's a discussion group. And I just imagine that in discussion groups, you're going to talk about yourself. If you're going to talk about God, because God has always been, I've never been like, say, I grew up Catholic. Most people, especially Black folk, get dressed to go to church, the church hats and the dresses and, all of that stuff. The Catholic Church, you can show up any way you want.
Right.
So Catholic Church, and you can go anytime. You can go to noon mass. You can go to Sunday mass at 7, 8, 9:30, noon, 5 p.m. You can
24 hours a day, the doors are open.
You can go to Sunday mass on Saturday evening.
Wow.
You can go anytime. So I would show up in shorts. I still do, if I go to church.
Fast forward. Pause.
But I just would show up in any kind of way. So I feel like if I'm sitting up in the bed in my nightgown and I'm praying and talking to God, that's just as real as me sitting in church. There's no difference.
Okay.
There is no difference.
Okay.
Other than I feel the holiness in a visceral way when I'm in church.
Yeah.
But there is no difference. God doesn't feel any differently towards me, whether I'm in my bedroom or whether I'm in a church pew.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that to say that it's never been about how God sees me. It's been about how I see myself, and accepting in my bones that God sees me just like he sees everybody else. Like I know that in my head, but to accept that in my bones. And so anyway, I've got off track. But when I decided I was going to go to the Course in Miracles group, I knew I had to show up authentically. I wanted to for myself. If I'm going to get anything out of this, I'm going to be honest.
Right.
So I want to talk about, whatever. I don't think I've ever told them, though, that I was involved with a married man. I don't think I said that. I'll talk about relationships, but I just knew I wanted to show up and put myself out there so that I can work through everything that I want to work through, and that I can be as close to God as possible, because that's my ultimate goal, to really just to know God through and through.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Does that answer your question? I know I'm all over the place.
We probably went a little bit different ways, but that's okay. It ultimately does. It adds more to the conversation, and it brings me to this question. I think sometimes when we're getting to that point, I mean, I think we all probably have instances or situations in life where we acknowledge, or that makes us, that reveals who we are, whether it's good or bad, or reveals where we are in life. And so when those situations arise, it is up to us to look in the mirror and look at that reflection and really, if necessary, make the adjustments, right? Some of us take on that task and some of us choose to just leave that and not do it. But I think at the point that you're doing this and you're realizing and acknowledging where you are in your self-assurance and where you want to be, and what you know to be true, then you start peeling away back at layers. And as you sometimes pull away back at some of these layers, ugliness comes up, something you like comes up, something you don't like, whatever. All these things kind of get revealed to you over time. What was that process like for you? And what are some of the things maybe you discovered about yourself that you liked and didn't like, that you could accept or not accept? That may go deeper than where we want to go, but let's just go there.
I think it's just about acceptance. I need a minute to think about that because I did have some definite awarenesses.
Like, did you discover in yourself why you had that? It's almost like, it's there. You're looking down the road and you see that I'm getting to this point where I'm going to have this complete assurance of who I am, knowing that I'm of value, I'm this, I'm that. But it's almost like something's pulling you back the other way as opposed to going forward in that direction, to that acceptance and that experience of joy of that.
That's
What's
so true.
pulling you back from doing that, getting to that point? Like, did you discover what those things were? And sometimes it's us, it's ourselves.
Yeah. I definitely get in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just doubting that certain things are going to happen.
What makes you doubt it?
Well, being alone is
Bitch.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's
hard.
When
you say alone, what do you mean?
I mean, and I don't want to start crying.
That's okay. Go there.
I mean,
necessary.
I always go back to Grey's Anatomy.
Okay.
And just the phrase from Grey's Anatomy is having that person, and having that, like in Grey's Anatomy, it's Christina and Meredith Grey, before Christina left. That was her person. Yeah. You're my person in a huge way. Tanya's my person. It's not that I don't have that. It's that witness. That's my equivalent. Having somebody who can witness you and care about you, hear you day in and day out. And it doesn't have to be a husband and wife. It's just, I have not had that since my mom. And it's not like my mom didn't drive me crazy, or we talked most days, but I wouldn't go 2 days without talking to her. But it's not like I always told her every single thing. But it was somebody who gave a damn. You know how your mother cares about you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
But you don't just have your mom. You've got Todd.
I do.
And I know you have your sons, but we're going to keep them to the side, and just your children don't necessarily know about you as an adult, as a woman. But you've got Todd that has an awareness of you as a person, and you guys have your connection, and you talk during the day. You might touch base for, you know what I'm saying?
I know what you mean.
And so that has been hard, to not have that, and to just rely on myself for my own sanity, and to come out the other end. I mean, I hope I'm coming out the other end, but to be on this last year, and I was really depressed one time. I'm gonna bring you into this.
Okay.
I was really depressed one time, and we were talking on the phone. And I don't remember if I told you I was depressed or not, because I know I have told you that in the past, like if I'm in a moment or something like that. But I don't remember if I told you or not. But when we hung up the phone, I started to text you, and I started to say, I'm not okay. Like you, I think you were telling me that, you're okay, you're good, you're, something like that. And I started to text, and I wrote like on a pad, like, I'm not okay. I'm going through whatever, I don't know what was going on in the moment. And then I just didn't, because I just didn't want it to be a big deal. And
but
then
it was a big deal.
Yeah, but I didn't want it to be a bigger deal. Like, I didn't want you to feel a certain way. You know what I mean? And then it just became like, not important anymore because so much time had passed. But so I'm just saying that there's moments.
Yeah.
There's just and then it's interesting. I watched this show Couples Therapy, and they had a COVID edition, and they were showing married couples, and some of them were going totally crazy during the pandemic. So I'm like, there's just always and I'm sure if I wasn't with the right person, I would definitely have lost my mind.
Girl, you could be with the right person. Almost. I mean, in a sense, because everyone's place of loneliness might be different. And your place may not be my place. Maybe my loneliness is in another area.
Yeah.
And so the depths of my loneliness, regardless of who I'm with.
Yeah.
And that person screaming, what's wrong? Can I help? Whatever. But I'm in a sense of loneliness for whatever it is that I'm missing. So we never know. I think where I still want to go with this conversation is, for some reason this is probably, I feel like this is a moment where you have these moments where she checking people. Okay, let's go. This is probably going to be one of those moments. I've always felt for women, I think I may have even posted about this recently, if I'm not mistaken. So I understand how you explain the situation of, okay, you have, we always have our mother, or we have our mother to give us that. We have, our friends to give us that. Me, Tanya, I have Todd to give. We have our partners to give us that. But what about before, or if you don't have a partner? I've always, as a woman, felt this way, that as women, we need to learn how. Now, mind you, I know there's a line. And I think we're at the point where we're talking about the line past that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, which I think you have that. I'm not saying this to say I don't think you have that. But let's make sure we have that. And that's where I kind of want to go. And as women, whoever's listening to this, if you're a female, let's make sure we have this. We have to get to a place where we complete ourselves.
Oh,
period.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And so first, I get that sense of loneliness. It's companionship, I think you're maybe talking about.
Absolutely.
It's the companionship.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, we are whole. Like you said, that whole, WHOLE, we complete ourselves first. So I never wanted to go in any relationship where I feel like, and it doesn't mean I'm always at a point of strength and because we're human. Not the case at all. But ultimately, that's why I was saying my depth of loneliness could be different, because it could be something else that I'm missing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I can be happy and joyful with me. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that connection, I think you were referring to, was more so related to the companionship of it all. The day to day, every day, I can reach out and, and people see me, and that person sees me and knows me and all of that. And sometimes that's a gradual process still. I'm still learning my husband. He's still learning me. People are still, that's an always continuous thing. But it's that depth of loneliness that sometimes we can get to where we're still missing something in our
And that's
lives.
Something that nobody can fill.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you feel like, do you feel like that's a different thing than what you were referring to? Okay.
But I think about what you're talking about often.
Okay.
Because I can fill that hole with potato chips. That glass of wine. I think about that often.
Yeah. And sometimes we do fill it with people, but people that we may not really want to be there.
Yeah.
Because that's not really what we're looking for.
But I do believe that we are meant to be in relationship with each other, and whatever that looks like. Yeah. And just because I think that doesn't mean that relationship is supposed to fill me or make me whole.
Absolutely.
So I do believe that,
because you could get that, and then there's still something missing.
Yeah.
Which it reminds me of a part in your chapter where you're talking with, you would be with these guys and you would start crying when they started showing, caressing you or whatever, and you would start crying. And I'm referring now to a point in your chapter, but you realized you were missing your father and your brother. It was that love connection in that respect. I guess
heart was
your
broken.
heart was broken, and you hadn't dealt with that broken heart. So, I just transferred it to like even here. You could get that connection or person, but still
It's
be missing
something
something.
different. It's something different. Like I used to my Sunday group before the pandemic, we would meet every Sunday morning, and you leave there if you're ever in any kind of spiritual discussion group. It's just there's just something uplifting. There's just some kind of energy that rises up out of that. That's so real, right? It's not just this particular group. I think it's where you're really, really into talking and connecting,
right.
And I remember going from that group to another one. It was like I had 2 or 3 groups on one Sunday, and I was just like, oh my, that I was so high on this spirit at the end of the day. And I had this awareness that I can have that just with me and God.
There you go.
I don't have to have that within a group. I don't have to go somewhere to get that. I can have that right here.
That same feeling that you were getting.
Yeah. Okay. But I think that's the ultimate journey that every single one of us, that's the ultimate struggle. That's how we can get to that place. I was listening to John Larroquette. I was listening to him speak in AA, and he was talking about somebody who was one of the founders of NA, Narcotics Anonymous. And that person, I guess, I don't know when this happened. That person was in Hollywood, and apparently he was like really well known. And somehow that man, I think he never said their name. It's, anonymous. But anyway, they fell off, the wagon and started using, and that person died. And when he was telling the story, he was saying how he was trying to bring home how people can be too proud. And I apply this to life, period. Okay. They can be too proud to say they're in trouble. And then next thing you know, they're dead. I can't remember if the man committed suicide or he OD'd or, what happened. And he was trying to say that, you can get to the other side. You can get to that place where it's you and God and you feel that wholeness. You can get there where you don't need the drink or the drug. And that also, though, that there's no shame in saying that you need help.
Okay.
And I understood both of those things because I feel like that is the human dynamic. I mean, that's an example of substance abuse, but that is the human dynamic.
I think I get that and why you're saying that. As you're explaining this, again, it brings me to the crazy, but follow me, the companionship thing again. We make many things our companionship, and that's basically probably what the NA person did. You make the narcotics or you make the alcohol, and that becomes your comfort zone and your companionship. So I do get that. Tying this into something else kind of was another question I was going to ask later, but it makes sense to bring it up now. We were talking the other day through email about we're working on your social media stuff, and so you mentioned in one of your responses or you started off, I think, saying, I love to connect with people, and when I don't do that, it's almost like I feel like I failed. I feel like I think that's what you said. You feel
I'm
like I
disappointed.
failed. You're disappointed. I'm sorry.
I'm disappointed.
So all of this brings me to when I see more and more, I think, as we communicate, as I completely go deeper and understand who you are as a person, I feel like I know, but, confirmation, I guess, comes. It's like that connection experience is extremely important to you. At the end of the day, that's really what it's important to us all, but you really value that because it's soul to soul. Really, that's what you said.
That's exactly what it is.
It's literally soul to soul. And I think really, like your friend said, God poured an extra portion of love in you. And that a lot of that to me comes from, or that's reflected in your soul desire to have a soul connection. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe there's
so
a
what it
huge
is-
piece of God that's just really in Adrianne, and God wants to connect with us. That I really do feel like that's his strong desire. That, you know, of course he created us, but he wants to connect with us. And I think he does want us to have that connection. Back to what you were saying about, you know, experiencing God, you can have that same feeling that you had during the group things when you're talking to God. I kind of feel like he does want us to congregate together. It's in his word. Fail not to assemble together is what he tells us in his word, which means he wants us to connect in that way. That is what he's instructing us to do. And when we fail to do that in whatever kind of way, there's something missed there.
Yeah. So what I
That's a lot of different things I know.
But I get what you're saying. What I see is I sense and see, I believe, with most people, the authenticity of them. I see their authentic nature, and I want to connect with that. And I always, whenever I think about that, I think of the word intimate, not in the intimate sex, romantic love way, but in an intimate way. Like, it's intimate. I want to connect with you intimately. I want to connect with your soul. And what I mean by that is that connection can be we're laughing about something. Yeah. It could be we're talking about something deep. It'd be like something clicks for both of us when we're looking at something. Just something real.
And what does that do for you?
It's gratifying. It makes me happy. God is joy, love, and happiness. And I have this boyfriend. He also passed away. He would rarely just be himself. He just was always something. He always had this wall up. He would rarely be himself. I really, really was attracted to him as a person, but he wouldn't reveal that to me for whatever reason. And that, you know, I was sad about that because I thought that we could have, you know, grown into something, you know, longer and deeper. And I'm only bringing that up as an example. You know, that's where you grow and things last. And, you know, does that answer your question?
It does. It does. Yeah, I think it explains more of kind of what I was thinking. And I get why you're saying why. Those things for you is, again, another extension of the connection with God. It's almost like you need that peace too, because in all of that coming together, that's how you feel happy, joyful, experience God more, his love more, that kind of thing.
Recently, I was chatting with somebody over dinner, and we were both talking about God very briefly, and they were saying that they could have a dream that maybe their mother who passed away might show up in a dream, or somebody else who passed away might show up in a dream. And it might seem like that person was visiting them, but do they really think that person was visiting them? These are their words. Yeah. No, they don't really think that person, you know, like on one hand they do, but on another hand they don't. And that person just keeps it moving. Well, for somebody like me,
you're going to explore that.
You know, because I have all different kinds of dreams. Okay. My mom might just be in a dream, or she might be in the dream.
Explain it too, please.
she might be in a dream like you might be in my dream.
Okay.
You know, or she might actually be in the dream coming to visit me. Through my dream. Okay. You know, like I have all different kinds of levels of dreams, and I understand what level this is.
Got it. Okay.
And so I was trying to talk to this friend about, that's so interesting. Because this friend is one of the most beautiful people that I know. And it doesn't mean anything, you know, as close as I want to be to God, and as much as she is who she is, to me, there's no difference in God's eyes between us.
Okay.
There's absolutely no difference.
Okay.
But I would love to have talked about that a little more. And I was like, it's so interesting how that's something you wouldn't explore, but me, I'm taking it, I'll run with it. And she just did not want to go any further. I was just like, I sure would love to have this conversation with somebody. That's what I'm just kind of saying to myself. But otherwise, I was like, just leave it alone. Like, I'm just at the point now where I'm just, leave it alone.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
As far as wanting to have more of a conversation. As far as wanting to have more of a conversation. Now, I am willing to let people just be who they are. Whatever. Okay, that's you. You don't want to talk about it. We won't talk about it. But sure would love for somebody to play with me,
I feel like I totally get you.
She's making what are you writing? A picture frame.
That's a picture of Adrianne. Okay. I totally get that. Just tying that into, again, relationship is where I'm thinking, because I know some of the things we've talked about with the relationship situation, and we won't need to go there.
You mean with men in my life?
Oh, yeah, relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just feel like while I get you, because that's you, man, I feel like you need someone who's just like you in that area, because I just feel like then that's, not always, but initially going to be the breakdown. That is your makeup. You need that connection. When you don't get it, something's wrong with this. Something is not right with this. And I feel like it's going to be kind of a piece of what's the missing link of you being able to go further with this person. And it leads to some kind of situation where you're just not together anymore. That's
we have to be able to talk and have fun and laugh.
But they also have to be able to appreciate that about you and tie into that or want to explore that, because some people just this is the way I am. And
I do need somebody who's really spiritual, because I love to talk about, I want to hear about, like, I can look at something or I can read something and that can just have me saying, it's like food.
Girl, I know where you're about to go. I know you.
It's like it's like food. So I would a person doesn't have to agree with me at all.
No.
But
it's the exploring of the conversation, the connecting part.
And that can be as much as as important as that is about the topic we're talking about.
Right.
That's just as important about anything.
Yeah.
Sports, politics, whatever's going, social unrest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got to be able to have a conversation, and
it's not just a conversation. It is
what
it's that I know you're saying we got to be able to have a conversation, but a conversation is just having a casual talk. You want to explore some of these. You want to go into this deeper kind of conversation to explore this connection of what you're seeing, because you're seeing so much more than what the person may be seeing, or making the connecting of more than what they could be connecting to it. And you need to explore that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a part of who you are.
Right.
Where a normal person, or not normal person.
You trying to say I'm not normal?
No.
40 and slip over here.
Right. I don't know everything.
What are you saying exactly?
I should say these. Some people, I should say this, men. Some people are just so on this.
You talking about men's?
I don't want to say it like that, but let's just go there. Are so on the surface of things.
Oh yeah.
It just takes someone really that has that depth of, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
It's just, you know what I'm saying? So that, unfortunately, is hard to find. And I'm going to put it out there and say it, especially with our men.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%.
Okay.
Hey, I have a friend. When
I say our men, close, you know what we mean.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I am so close to calling this friend by name, and he probably wouldn't mind.
Excuse me.
But he and I, years ago, we tried to date a couple times and it just didn't work out, but we've remained friends, although we haven't talked in a while. But he's super deep. He's super spiritual. But I find that he does not, I like to say, I don't feel like there's enough space in the room for me and his personality.
Okay.
Because his personality is so big that he doesn't allow for what we're talking about.
Okay.
Like, he would be talking about how he sees things, but there's no room for me to,
part of it.
For my part of it, and for us to engage.
Got it.
And so it's not just about somebody, being spiritual. And there are a whole bunch of men who are spiritual and deep, but it's allowing for that communication and that exploration, and so that means you're secure.
Yeah, I get that. It's like a dance, and you got to find the perfect dance partner for you to have that whole type of dance.
I'm looking for a dance partner.
You better know how to
dance. I like to get down.
You better know how to dance. Bring it. Well, okay. So, I just want to quickly shift into like the discovery of all that. I know I have a lot of sense of what you were able to gain and get from A Course in Miracles. Let's tie that into now your Let's Start Healing podcast, this podcast, and how you are. How do I want to ask this question? Maybe what you were able to find and pull from A Course in Miracles, and how you're wanting to marry that into Let's Start Healing as it relates to relationship. And I just mean in general, relating with people, just, discovering who we are and how we're connected.
It's two things. My line for Let's Start Healing is we have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. So it's about showing that, the world is so crazy. It's just so crazy.
Off the chart.
And I was watching one of the news shows, Reliable Sources, this morning, and they were talking about really how there's, this divide in the country. And now they have a name to it, political sectarianism or something like that. And the guy that the host was talking to was making the point, basically, it's not as bad as the media makes it seem. Okay. That's what they were trying to say. So one, I felt like, God, I'm getting cynical because I feel like it's that bad, but a couple of years ago or several years ago when Trump was elected, and one of the inspirations for this podcast was I did a story on how there's all these different groups on healing the racial divide. One group is called Healing the Racial Divide. Okay. But there were other similar groups under different names that were started by people who are white after Trump was elected, who wanted to do something about this divide in the country. They wanted to start understanding people of color. They wanted to know what they don't know. And in reporting on that, and in the different discussion groups that I've been involved in around spirituality, where there are Black people and white people and people who are from all different backgrounds, who just being able to bond just around love of a higher power, I've been able to see, well, God, people connect. They're just looking for something in common. Yeah. And if you have something in common, then the sky's the limit. Communication is totally open. I absolutely agree with that. So that's one of the things that I want to bring in Let's Start Healing. And a part of me does feel cynical, in over the last few years, like, because they were trying to say what I had been saying to myself, like, look, we have more
Yeah.
in common than we think. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like, do we? But my guests attest to that. Okay. I've been doing the podcast for 2 years. Okay. So my guests attest to that. We do have more in common than we think. So I love talking to people from all different walks of life, about all different things. So showing that, and then everything that I'm talking about on the time we've been talking is just about, I'm just trying to get through this world and stay connected, get through my day and stay connected to God and not get lost, all up in my egos and my feelings through the course of a work day. And that is like one of the biggest challenges that I've had, but trying to stay connected to who I really am. I think that's what we all long for, because that's where we feel real. That's where we have like the most appreciation for who we are as a person, for what we're doing, when we feel present.
I agree.
So that is what I'm trying to, I want to use the word prosper. I don't know if that's an inappropriate word, but that's what I'm trying to bring and to show and to talk to people about who are they. Who are you? How do you get through the world? How do you connect with God? How do you stay connected to Him? And just because I might not succeed or you might not succeed in staying connected all day long, that doesn't have anything to do with God. God's still right here, and just try again.
Absolutely. Well, I want to say something to you, and I'm going to kind of tie it into what you said a little bit ago and what you're doing with the podcast now. So I've definitely seen, in some senses, you go through the challenge of 2020 and the pandemic, and and heard a lot of that, and even sometimes just had feelings because I didn't know what the full answer is. But we say things, and I'm not going to call them fluff things because these are things that are true, and factual, to just try and get us to the next day, just to get you to hold on, to know that it's not going to always be this way. We're going to come out of this. But I posted something on your page the other day for your birthday about, I think I started off with saying strength or determined or something like that, because I felt like I wanted to call out the things that I literally see in this person who I know has struggled through the loss of a mother. Let's just go there first. I don't know how I would handle something like that. Honestly, I have my mother now, and when I even think of her not being here, and I know we're going to lose our parents, no mother should bury their child, but no child should bury their mother. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And with Mother's Day coming up, I just know that that's got to be a hard time. Then Father's Day, that's got to be a hard time. Then what the hell? Brother's Day, if there's damn one. Siblings Day, whatever. It's like there's a day that I know my friend's going to be fucking down. You know what I mean? Or just shit on her mind and just going to make it harder for her to deal with life, and whatever. Because, again, your ability or your desire to want to connect and to seek love, you can't not think of these things. You can't not want to think of these things on these particular days, but just in general. So when you add all that into everything else, I know that she wants to have the companionship, everything else. And so when you add in a freaking pandemic and shit, and you live alone and all that, I'm using words now, all of that makes for, I think, just sometimes some crazy days that I don't know how you made it through being over here in this apartment in your townhome by yourself. And I know that I can't fix that, but I know that. And I know I probably haven't always done a great job of being there for you as the friend to help you through those stage in life. We're all dealing with the pandemic, but that's not an excuse, because to know that we ended a call and you wanted to text, "I'm not okay," breaks my heart. It does. But it just defines more of what I meant when I said strong, determined, all of those things, because that is all of who you are. It has to be. It has to be more than and that's the problem. That I'm always cool with the fact that people don't know who we are. Screw that. Fuck it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You can prove yourself. You can not. Mm-hmm. You can believe it if you don't. That's fine. But you gotta know who you are. That's just how you gotta know. So you gotta know that those words are everything of who you are. You gotta know. You can even put nobody could have done it. I don't care, because I do feel like our experiences are ours. We own them. So let's say that nobody could have gone through what you have gone through in this life. Nobody. And still be here doing a podcast trying to get people to see that we're all connected and we need each other. What?
Well, thank you.
It's the truth.
Well, let me say something. First of all, thank you for that. You're a wonderful friend. And I want to say that, there's people, I've been really, really blessed. And there are plenty of people who have gone through and are going through much, much worse things than I'm going through.
Of course, but that's their own lot.
Yes,
that's their lot.
Yes. And I want to say that I want to say something first, and there's two things I want to say, and I'm hoping I don't forget one of them. In terms of like those special days like Mother's Day or Father's Day, I really don't feel sad on those days.
That's good.
I remember feeling sad like the first Father's Day and the first Mother's Day that I had without my mom. I might have shared this before, but I was upset. I woke up in the morning. I was living somewhere else. I woke up in the morning. I sat up in the bed. I read this. My mother created this notebook for me that she wanted me to read every Mother's Day.
That's good.
And I looked at that. I got out a good cry. I did a real good boo-hoo. And then I got up and I walked in the living room. And you remember where I used to live, and I had this sunroom, and the sunroom had a hardwood floor like that. And so across the room was a long table, say like, there's a desk across the room here. And this picture that I have over here of my mom, inside the picture, I have a picture frame, right? I have a good sized picture of my mother in a frame. And then inside that picture is a little small picture, snapshot, right?
Okay.
That's inserted. So I come out the living room, and the picture that's inserted is out of the frame and laying across the room. Yeah.
And you didn't leave the house.
No. It's funny because one of my younger nieces, she'll say, "Have you heard from Grandma Marge lately? Any visits?" So in fact, this is the first time I'm thinking like maybe that was the thing that was like the reminder that my mom is always with me. So I mean, I have my moments, especially recently. I just miss her so
Probably
much.
Just not even on that day, just
right?
in general,
On that day, I'm not bad. I just want to acknowledge her on that day, or my father on Father's Day. But I just miss them. There's times like I really miss them.
Yeah.
But the thing about being alone and everything that I said, it comes down to that. When you're going through a hard time, if you're going through a hard time, and I don't know if Todd does this or not, but he could do it, even if he doesn't. There's a possibility that he could. There's a potential. So is that if you're going through a hard time and everything just doesn't, you're just like all down on yourself, he can tell you that you're all of that. You got this. Go into work tomorrow and kick their behind. Go kick their ass. Show them who you are. You know what I mean? He can empower you. Of course, we need to be able to do that for ourselves.
Yeah.
But that other voice, that outside voice, that can just remind you who you are, that's what I long for.
Yeah.
That's what's so hard about being alone. Yes, God saves me day in and day out. I have been hugely blessed to have a spiritual relationship with the family members that I've lost, because I really don't know how I would deal with it if I didn't have that relationship. But that, somebody to just remind you who you are that's what I mean when I say a person, like you're a person. Somebody who can say, excuse my language, it's a spiritual podcast, but somebody who can say, fuck them, because sometimes you need that just so that you can get up and do it again. So that's...
Well, anytime you want me to tell you to say fuck them, I will gladly just call me and say, girl, I need you to say it. Girl, say fuck them.
And I don't mean that about anything in particular. I'm just saying in general.
No, I get that.
Absolutely. That's what's
because they're
thing.
seeing you at that point too, where you need, maybe a very low point where you need just a word to help you rise, to that occasion.
And I realized I'm watching this really good series on Inside the NBA, on TNT with Charles Barkley and Shaq, and you're looking at me with like a straight face.
Okay.
Anyway,
I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna catch that.
Lord have mercy. So anyway,
what's it called?
On HBO.
Okay.
Well, on basketball, if you ever watch any basketball on TNT, you see Shaq up there.
Yeah.
You see Charles Barkley.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, whatever. You're looking.
No,
at me like,
I know what you mean. I thought you meant a particular show.
No, so when you're watching that, so they have a docuseries.
Yes.
That I understood was originally, I guess maybe it came on during All-Star Weekend. I'm not sure. They have a docuseries that they now have moved over to HBO Max.
Okay.
And so Inside the NBA has been on for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating. Everybody, the whole production staff, so many of them have been there since the late 80s or early 90s. I mean, it's just fascinating. It's a 4-part series that I highly recommend.
Okay.
Well, the man at the top of this production is just salt of the earth. He appears this way. Salt of the earth, guy, just full of life.
Yeah.
And he's probably late 50s, I guess.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But he mentioned that, and so you're like, you told this whole story to get to this. But anyway, he mentioned that sometimes he has a problem with depression.
Okay.
And he brought that up in context of something. But it's so striking to me that, people who have a problem with depression, often you don't know it. You don't know that they're bothered. They show up.
Yeah.
Look at Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
I'm like trip out every
who
time
would've thunk, right?
Yeah, they've been showing him lately that you just don't know what somebody's going through. So just because somebody shows up, I may not look like you getting to me, but you getting to me. Or
just life is
or
getting
that
to me.
right,
Yeah.
or is
But I gotta keep going, so I'm
right,
here.
Right.
Yeah.
So I said all that just to get to
That's
that
okay.
bottom line.
But I don't play with the depression thing. We've had a personal situation with that. In our own family, and it's just I've had a dear friend take her life from it, and so I always said I just never want to know. And not that it was anything I can do. She had a clinical situation, but that there was something I could have done that I didn't do.
Yeah.
And it just would just rip me to shreds. So, all right. Well, I've enjoyed this conversation. It has definitely been, I don't know, I'd say needed. Just say needed. So, I guess tell us whatever the final words you'd like to say about your chapter in the book and Adrianne of who I am, and roll us out.
Well, Lanada, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
doing this. Your podcast, She Talks in the She-Cave, where can people find it? Let them know.
Okay. So I have a podcast, She Talks in the She-Cave, as you said, where I record conversation between myself and whatever guests from my She-Cave. And you can follow me at b.e.decors on Instagram or Facebook and find out what a She-Cave is and a little more about that. So basically, I am on the Spotify and I think about it, SoundCloud platforms, and you can hear it pretty much from SoundCloud from my website as well, which is bedecors.com.
Cool, man. And so my chapter 1, I want to just mention, the title is called My Fearful Winding Road to Trust in God, in the book Women Who Rise. It's available on Amazon. So thank you so much, Lanada Chanel Duncan.
Thank you for allowing me to interview you. And, I love turning the tables. And, again, I just want to congratulate you on the book.
Thank you.
I know it was a step for you, but I think the step definitely, and I'm sure you agree, in the right direction of just, exploring this and sharing it with other people. Because it does reveal more about who you are, and it's not always easy to do that. So I understand that, but that's a part of you too, accepting who you are. And
it is.
That lies within you.
It is.
So,
it is.
And I definitely want to congratulate you on the podcast because I think you're doing an exceptional thing with it.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can listen to all of our podcasts on traditional podcast platforms. Until next time, let's start healing.